Alright, this is going to be the next part of the tuna casserole with potato chips. Okay, so you got your casserole dish. You have put your cream of mushroom soup with your third of a can, not a cup. Third of a soup can after you empty the cream of mushroom soup into the casserole using your spatula, so you get every bit of it you can get, right? Third of a can of milk. I use 2%. Then how much ever tuna you want in it. Okay, because you're going to finish this off with potato chips. And maybe cheese on top if you like. Alright, so I used the 4 cans, which I had covered in the previous video. Drained, and I use spring water. I don't use oil. And then you can use stale potato chips. Well, this is where it comes in handy, because I didn't mention earlier, but potato chip crumbs was another thing that I would keep in a sack in the fridge with the cracker crumbs and the cookies that ended up nobody's desire anymore to make the pudding. Put the pudding on top after you put the cookies in the dish, and then you chill that, and the cookies soak up the moisture from the pudding. So, but you can do that to your potato chips too. When you get down to just, the little corners, got a little 2 or 3 tablespoons of crushed chip crumbs. Dump it in a Ziploc and set it in the freezer, or the fridge. I keep mine in the basket in the fridge, all the little bags of them. So totally sorry. I went and got me hot cocoa. I bought hot cocoa powder mix at the Amish store. And this time I added a little bit of white chocolate syrup and some mint syrup, because I felt like being a little bit spoiled tonight. And I didn't put the marshmallows on, because it makes my mouth so sticky. So, after you put your tuna, drained tuna, stir that all in. You put your crushed chips. You don't have to crush them a whole lot if you don't feel like it, because they're going to soak up the moisture from the milk that you added to the soup. And that's why it's the perfect way to use up leftover stale potato chips that nobody ends up wanting except for birds, if you toss them out in your yard for the birds. You can't tell that they're stale after that. There's no use trying to put a brand new fresh bag of chips in this casserole, because it's not going to matter. They're going to get wet anyway in the milk mixture with the soup. So you might as well use your stale ones. That, mine always will end up kind of not crispy if they're not clipped properly, and then it rains in the night, or, they'll soak up the moisture from the atmosphere. And then after that, who really wants them? Except for this tuna casserole, which loves them. That casserole devours stale potato chips like you would not believe. You could, I guess, add a few Funyuns, the onion ring shaped chips, Funyuns, or I guess maybe a few Doritos crumbled on top might do something for it. And I've used all kinds of flavors, whatever I've got on hand, whether it's the sour cream or the 3 cheese or the plain or the ripple or the non-ripple. It doesn't really matter. because it's got an overall good flavor and a nice effect. It's like one of my favorite comfort foods is tuna casserole with potato chips. I won't touch it with noodles because I like the potato chips better than noodles. I don't really like noodles at all. Maybe in chicken noodle soup, but that's about it. At one point ramen, but hey, who hasn't, right? Okay, so then you have your oven preheated a little while. It's not really necessary, but if you want to time it, you probably better preheat it a little. Set it at 350 for like 35 minutes. And I'll always check and see if the top little bit is crispy, if it's starting to brown. And if it is, and if it's to your liking at the level of brownness that it is, if you want cheese, shredded cheese on top now, then's about the time to add it. And then you shut off your oven and let the cheese melt with the heat that's still in the oven. You know, pull your casserole out, shut the door after you set, the tuna on top. Add your cheese, and then put it back in the oven that's been turned off. Okay, the heat that's left should be enough to melt the cheese. And also, if you'd like to extend it a little bit farther, drain some peas into your, or drain the pea juice into your hobo soup, and put the rest of the contents of just the peas into your casserole. And I've used two different sauces to flavor that, depending again on my mood. Sometimes it'll be Worcestershire sauce, and sometimes it'll be soy sauce. And sometimes it's just best to not do that while it's in the casserole dish. Allow that to happen only after it's on the person eating its plate. That way, you don't, mess it up for someone who doesn't really have the same mood about it that you do. Little seasoned salt won't hurt it. You could actually use canned corn if you wanted to, but I get kind of tired of that, so I'll pick the peas, I think, next time to add to, if I add to anything. And have some cottage cheese, or a side. And maybe some buttered bread. Pickled beets. Something like that. Okay, so that's pretty much it with the casserole. And it's a forever dish, at our house. So, I'm winding down now from the day. I videoed, screencast a lot today. And the hardest thing is, whoops, did I crash? The hardest thing is to get these uploaded, because it can take quite a while. And the time in between, it's just really bad. But about the oatmeal I mentioned today that I always forget because it was never a favorite. I watched a video, this girl made chocolate chip cookies out of oatmeal and smashed bananas, and she tossed in like a small handful of chocolate chips. That was it. And I haven't tried it, but it sounds like it's a pretty good deal. So that's another inexpensive, aka cheap each you can do. I'm kind of munching on sunflower seeds too. I'm telling you, that bulk store and me are going to become good friends, because I had 1.05 pounds for $2.85 a pound. Whoops, so total price $2.99. And they're so good.